Oceans often appear calm on the surface, yet beneath lies a world where a single misstep can trigger sudden chaos. Routine swims, playful dives, or simple maintenance tasks can transform into frantic struggles for survival when powerful predators strike without warning. From 5 Seadrill workers ambushed off Gansbai to a midnight swimmer fatally dragged below, these stories reveal how quickly waters can turn deadly. In this video, we'll uncover 6 chilling encounters where ordinary outings turned into unforgettable battles for survival. The waters off Gansbai, South Africa, had earned their reputation as the great white shark capital of the world for good reason. On August 1st, 2025, the coastal town's notorious predator population would remind 5 offshore workers just how dangerous their workplace could become. Derek Van Zyl had been working these platforms for 12 years, long enough to respect the ocean's dangers, but not long enough to fear them completely. The seasoned maintenance supervisor descended into the murky waters that morning alongside his crew of 4 experienced divers. Nico Botha, a stocky man from Johannesburg, had joined the offshore team 3 years prior, having grown tired of land-based construction work. Tariq Mohammed, the crew's equipment specialist, possessed an almost supernatural ability to diagnose mechanical problems underwater. Liam Coetzee, barely 25, but already considered one of the platform's most reliable welders, brought youthful enthusiasm to every dive. Johan Smit rounded out the team as their safety coordinator, a role that would prove more crucial than anyone anticipated. The drilling platform's support structure required urgent attention, after recent storm damage had corroded several critical cable connections 25 feet below the surface. The crew's mission involved replacing a massive steel support cable that helped anchor the platform against strong currents. The work demanded precision and coordination, as the heavy cable measured nearly 6 inches in diameter and weighed several hundred pounds when fully extended. Derek led the descent through the relatively clear morning waters, checking his depth gauge as the team reached their working depth. The platform's massive steel legs created an underwater forest of metal beams, pipes, and support structures, providing both workspace and potential hazards. Schools of smaller fish darted between the industrial framework, their presence a reassuring sign that the area remained ecologically active despite the human intrusion. Nico positioned himself near the corroded cable attachment point, preparing to disconnect the damaged section while Tariq readied the replacement hardware. The new cable had been lowered from the surface earlier, suspended on heavy-duty chains to prevent it from sinking too deep. Liam began cutting through the corroded metal brackets with his underwater torch, sending streams of sparks and bubbles cascading toward the ocean floor 40 feet below. Johan maintained his position slightly apart from the working crew, monitoring their air supplies and watching for potential safety hazards. The prescribed safety protocols required constant vigilance in these waters, though most workers had grown somewhat complacent after months of routine maintenance dives without incident. The team worked methodically for nearly 30 minutes, making steady progress on the cable replacement. Nico had successfully disconnected the damaged cable and was maneuvering the heavy replacement into position when disaster struck in the most mundane way possible. While attempting to secure the new cable with a large adjustable wrench, the tool slipped from his grip due to the awkward working angle and his thick diving gloves. The heavy wrench tumbled through the water, striking several metal beams and pipes as it fell toward the depths. Each impact created a sharp metallic clang that resonated through the water like an underwater bell. The sound waves traveled far beyond the immediate work area, carrying an unintentional dinner invitation to any predators lurking in the deeper waters nearby. A massive great white shark, measuring approximately 16 feet from snout to tail, had been patrolling the deeper trench system roughly half a mile from the drilling platform. The mature female had been following a pod of seals earlier that morning but had lost their trail in the maze of underwater rock formations. The sudden metallic clanging immediately caught her attention, triggering predatory instincts honed over millions of years of evolution. The shark's approach went unnoticed by the working crew, who remained focused on their task of replacing the cable. Derek was instructing Nico on proper cable alignment when the predator emerged from the murky depths below like a torpedo launched from the abyss. The great white's first pass targeted Nico, who was positioned lowest in the water column and presented the most obvious silhouette against the lighter water above. The shark's powerful jaws clamped down on Nico's left leg, with tremendous force, immediately puncturing his diving suit and drawing blood. Nico's shocked reaction sent clouds of air bubbles streaming from his breathing apparatus as he instinctively tried to kick free from the massive predator. The shark's razor-sharp teeth sliced through the protective fabric and into the flesh beneath, causing severe lacerations from his knee to his ankle. Derek and Tariq found themselves directly in the shark's path as it thrashed violently with Nico still trapped in its jaws. Derek managed to dodge the snapping head by mere inches, while Tariq was struck by the shark's powerful tail fin, sending him spinning through the water in a disorienting tumble. The force of the impact knocked his breathing regulator from his mouth, forcing him to fight panic while relocating his air supply. Johan and Liam were positioned near the platform's main support structure when the attack began. The shark's violent thrashing created powerful underwater currents that slammed both men against the steel beams, leaving them bruised and struggling to maintain their positions. Johan's safety equipment, including his emergency signaling device, was scattered by the impact. The attack reached its peak intensity when the shark's thrashing damaged one of the platform's hydraulic lines, which had been running at high pressure to operate machinery on the surface. The ruptured line created a powerful jet of pressurized hydraulic fluid that shot through the water like an underwater fire hose. The high-pressure stream struck the shark directly in its sensitive gill area, causing the predator to release Nico and retreat momentarily. However, the respite proved temporary as the massive shark began circling the work area, clearly agitated, but not deterred. The crew realized their desperate situation demanded immediate action. Derek grabbed a heavy pipe wrench from his tool belt while Tariq retrieved a section of steel pipe that had been cut earlier. Johan and Liam positioned themselves to defend Nico, who was bleeding heavily and struggling to remain conscious. The shark made several more aggressive passes, forcing the crew to fight back with their improvised weapons. Derek managed to strike the predator's snout with his wrench during one close approach, while Tariq used his steel pipe to fend off the massive jaws. The metallic impacts confused the shark rather than injure it, but provide enough of a deterrent to prevent another successful bite. Johan activated the emergency ascent protocol, signaling the surface crew to begin immediate evacuation procedures. The platform's emergency response team lowered a protective cage within minutes, though getting 5 injured divers into the small enclosure while fending off a circling great white proved nearly impossible. The crew's evacuation to the surface revealed the extent of their injuries. Nico required immediate emergency surgery for his severe leg wounds. In contrast, the others suffered from various cuts, bruises, and psychological trauma from their terrifying encounter. Later investigations revealed that great white shark activity in the area had increased dramatically during the previous week, with several sightings reported by local fishing boats. Marine biologists suggested that the unusual aggression might have been related to seasonal feeding patterns or territorial disputes among competing predators. The incident served as a stark reminder that even routine industrial work can become life-threatening when conducted in waters inhabited by apex predators, and that even small mistakes, such as dropping tools, can trigger dangerous encounters with creatures perfectly designed for underwater combat. The waters surrounding the Great Barrier Reef had welcomed countless cruise ships over the decades, their passengers eager to witness one of the world's most spectacular marine ecosystems. On March 22, 2014, the luxury vessel Pacific Dawn carried over 2,000 tourists through the coral-rich waters off Queensland, Australia. The region's complex reef system created an underwater paradise that attracted not only tourists and marine life enthusiasts, but also numerous predator species that thrived in the nutrient-rich environment. David Morgan, a 34-year-old accountant from Melbourne, had saved for 3 years to afford this cruise vacation with his wife and 2 young children. The family trip represented his first real break from the demanding corporate world that had consumed most of his adult life. David had always been fascinated by marine biology, though his career path had led him far from any oceanic pursuits. This cruise offered him the perfect opportunity to observe the reef's incredible biodiversity from the safety and comfort of a well-appointed passenger vessel. David found himself drawn to the ship's starboard railing, where he could get an unobstructed view of the reef formations below. The water appeared so clear that he could easily make out individual coral heads and schools of tropical fish swimming 30 feet beneath the surface. His enthusiasm for marine observation had led him to lean progressively farther over the railing, trying to capture the perfect photograph of a large sea turtle that had appeared near the ship. The cruise ship's safety railings met all international maritime standards, standing approximately 42 inches high and designed to prevent accidental falls under normal circumstances. However, David's combination of excitement, camera equipment, and an awkward leaning position created a dangerous situation that developed faster than anyone could have anticipated. While stretching to photograph the sea turtle, David's camera strap became entangled with his sunglasses, creating a momentary distraction just as a small wave rocked the ship. The slight movement was barely noticeable to other passengers, but it proved sufficient to shift David's center of gravity beyond the safety of the railing. His desperate grab for the rail missed by mere inches, and he plummeted toward the ocean surface 40 feet below. The impact of the water knocked the breath from David's lungs and disoriented him completely. The warm, tropical water provided little comfort as he struggled to surface, weighed down by his clothing and camera equipment. Panic began to set in as he realized the cruise ship's massive hull loomed above him, creating a sense of isolation despite being surrounded by 2,000 potential rescuers. A 14-foot tiger shark had been patrolling the reef's edge for several hours, following the scent trails left by various fish species that frequented the area around anchored vessels. The predator's distinctive stripe pattern had earned its species the tiger designation, though this particular specimen's markings had faded somewhat with age and size. Tiger sharks have a reputation for aggressive behavior and indiscriminate feeding habits, making them particularly dangerous to humans. The commotion from David's sudden entry into the water immediately attracted the shark's attention. The splashing, combined with the electrical signals generated by David's panicked movements, triggered the predator's hunting instincts in a way that millions of years of evolution had perfected. The shark approached from the depths, its powerful tail propelling its massive bulk toward the surface with frightening speed. David had barely managed to orient himself in the water when the tiger shark struck with devastating force. The predator's jaws clamped down on his torso just below his rib cage, with enough pressure to crack bones and tear through muscle tissue. The shark's serrated teeth sliced through David's shirt and into the flesh beneath, creating multiple deep lacerations across his chest and abdomen. The attack's violence shocked passengers and crew members who had been watching the rescue preparations from above. David's screams of pain and terror carried clearly across the water as he fought desperately against the massive predator. He managed to strike the shark's head and snout with his fists, though his punches seemed to have minimal effect against the creature's thick, sandpaper-like skin. Crew members scrambled to deploy emergency rescue equipment, while passengers threw life rings, seat cushions, and anything else that might distract the attacking shark. Several crew members grabbed oars and began striking the water's surface, creating noise and splashing that they hoped might drive the predator away from their passenger. The ship's emergency response team launched a rescue boat within 3 minutes of David's fall, though the tiger shark's continued presence made immediate rescue attempts extremely dangerous. The predator maintained its grip on David for nearly 2 full minutes, thrashing violently and trying to drag him beneath the surface. David's survival instincts kept him fighting, kicking at the shark's head and body while struggling to keep his head above water. The combined efforts of the rescue team finally began to have an effect, as the shark released its grip and started circling at a distance. The rescue boat crew managed to reach David and pull him from the water, though his injuries were immediately apparent to everyone involved. Deep lacerations covered his arms and torso, while blood loss and shock had left him barely conscious. Australian maritime authorities later confirmed that tiger shark activity in the reef area had been unusually high during the previous week, with several sightings reported by diving operators and fishing vessels. Marine biologists suggested that seasonal feeding patterns and the presence of large numbers of tourist vessels contributed to increased predator activity in the region. The incident prompted cruise operators to review their safety protocols and implement additional measures to prevent similar accidents in waters with high predator densities. The coastal waters near Gansbai, South Africa, transformed into an entirely different world after sunset, when the familiar daytime seascape gave way to an alien underwater realm dominated by apex predators. On January 18, 2022, the moonlit ocean appeared deceptively calm to observers aboard luxury yachts anchored in the protected bay. This region has earned international recognition as one of the world's premier habitats for great white sharks. However, most visitors experience these magnificent predators from the safety of cage diving operations during daylight hours. Lucas Meyer, a 29-year-old marine engineering consultant from Cape Town, had chartered the 40-foot yacht with 3 longtime friends for a weekend getaway. The group had spent their days exploring the coastline, fishing, and enjoying the spectacular scenery that made this area a popular destination for affluent South Africans seeking escape from urban pressures. Lucas possessed extensive experience with recreational boating and considered himself comfortable in marine environments, though his expertise lay primarily in mechanical systems rather than marine biology. The yacht's owner had anchored in a sheltered cove approximately 2 miles from shore, choosing the location for its protection from prevailing winds and its reputation for excellent fishing. The depth in this area ranged from 60 to 80 feet, creating ideal conditions for various fish species, while also providing hunting grounds for larger predators. Local fishing guides often warned charter customers about increased shark activity during evening hours, when many predator species moved closer to shore to hunt. The evening had progressed pleasantly, with dinner, drinks, and conversation among old friends who rarely had the opportunity to spend extended time together. Lucas had consumed several beers during dinner but remained well below any level that would seriously impair his judgment. However, alcohol's effects on decision-making often become more pronounced in unfamiliar environments, particularly when combined with the confidence that comes from successful professional achievements and recreational experience. Shortly before midnight, Lucas announced his intention to take a refreshing swim in the moonlit waters. His friends expressed mild concern about nighttime swimming in unfamiliar waters, but their objections remained casual rather than serious warnings. The water temperature felt comfortable, and the calm surface conditions made swimming appear perfectly safe to anyone unfamiliar with the area's predator populations. Lucas entered the water from the yacht swim platform, wearing only swimming shorts and carrying no safety equipment beyond his own swimming abilities. The initial shock of the cool water felt invigorating after the warm evening air, and he began swimming away from the yacht with confident strokes. The moonlight provided enough illumination to see the yacht's outline, but rendered underwater visibility practically non-existent. A 15-foot great white shark had been hunting in the deeper channels beyond the cove for several hours, following scent trails left by various prey species. The massive predator represented a mature female that had survived and thrived in these waters for over 2 decades, developing hunting strategies perfectly adapted to the local environment. Great whites possessed exceptional sensory capabilities that allowed them to detect electrical fields generated by living creatures, making them supremely effective nighttime hunters. Lucas had swum approximately 50 yards from the yacht when the shark detected his presence through its electroreception system. The predator's approach from the depths went completely unnoticed as Lucas focused on enjoying his midnight swim. The great white's hunting strategy involved a vertical attack from below, using the darkness and depth to mask its approach until the final moment of strike. The attack occurred with devastating suddenness as the shark surged upward from the depths at tremendous speed. The predator's massive jaws clamped down on Lucas's right leg with crushing force, immediately severing major blood vessels and crushing bone tissue. The shark's momentum carried both predator and victim several feet above the water surface in a spectacular breach that his friends witnessed from the yacht deck. Lucas's screams of agony and terror carried clearly across the calm water as the shark dragged him beneath the surface. The predator's powerful jaws had inflicted catastrophic damage to his leg, essentially severing it at the thigh while simultaneously causing massive blood loss and trauma. The shark's thrashing movements created violent turbulence, making it impossible for Lucas to maintain any control over his situation. His friends aboard the yacht immediately recognized the severity of the situation and began emergency response procedures. They activated distress signals, started the engine, and gathered whatever equipment might assist in a rescue attempt. However, the yacht's size and the darkness made maneuvering close to the attack site extremely dangerous, particularly with an active predator in the immediate area. The great white's initial attack had inflicted fatal injuries, though Lucas continued fighting for survival with remarkable determination. He managed to strike the shark's head several times with his fists, though the predator's thick skin and massive size rendered these efforts largely ineffective. The shark maintained its grip for nearly 30 seconds before releasing him, only to begin circling for another attack. Lucas attempted to swim back toward the yacht despite his catastrophic injuries, though blood loss and trauma had severely compromised his strength and coordination. His friends threw life rings, cushions, and rope in his direction while shouting encouragement and instructions. The yacht's spotlight illuminated the attack scene, revealing the extent of Lucas's injuries and the continued presence of the circling predator. The shark struck again before any rescue attempt could succeed, attacking from a different angle and inflicting additional devastating injuries. This second attack proved fatal, as the predator's jaws found Lucas's torso, crushing vital organs and causing immediate unconsciousness. The massive great white then dragged its victim beneath the surface, disappearing into the depths where rescue became impossible. Emergency rescue services arrived within 20 minutes of the initial distress call, although their sophisticated sonar equipment and underwater cameras were unable to locate either Lucas or the attacking shark. The predator had apparently dragged its victim into deeper water beyond the immediate search area, making recovery efforts extremely challenging in the darkness. Lucas's body was eventually recovered the following morning by professional dive teams, confirming the fatal nature of his injuries. The incident prompted renewed warnings about nighttime swimming in predator-rich waters, emphasizing that even experienced swimmers face significant risks when entering the ocean after dark in areas known for apex predator populations. The rugged coastline near Darwin, Northern Australia, had attracted thrill-seekers and adventure enthusiasts for decades, with its dramatic cliff formations and seemingly pristine swimming holes. On April 22, 2025, the area's network of tidal rivers and coastal inlets provided the perfect backdrop for recreational activities that combined natural beauty with adrenaline-pumping excitement. Ethan Clark, a 19-year-old university student from Brisbane, had organized the weekend trip with 5 close friends as a celebration following their completion of final examinations. The group represented a typical collection of adventure-seeking young adults who possessed more enthusiasm than experience when it came to assessing potential dangers in unfamiliar environments. Ethan had discovered the cliff-jumping location through social media posts and online forums that highlighted its spectacular scenery and exciting recreational opportunities. The morning had begun with perfect weather conditions and crystal-clear water that made the jumping site appear completely safe to the inexperienced group. Several other groups of young people had already started using the cliff for jumping, creating an atmosphere of fun and excitement that masked any potential dangers lurking beneath the surface. The tidal conditions were ideal, with high water levels providing maximum depth for safe jumping. Ethan volunteered to make the first jump, displaying the kind of fearless confidence that often characterized 19-year-old males in group settings. He had some experience with cliff jumping from previous trips to inland locations. However, he had never attempted jumps into tidal waters connected to river systems known for their predatory activity. His friends gathered along the cliff edge to photograph and video the jump, planning to share their adventure on various social media platforms. The 20-foot drop provided sufficient height for an exciting jump, while remaining within the bounds of relative safety for experienced jumpers. Ethan positioned himself at the cliff edge, checked the landing area for any obvious hazards, and executed a clean entry into the murky water below. The initial sensation felt exhilarating as the cool water enveloped him, and the successful jump generated cheers from his friends above. A 9-foot bull shark had been patrolling the deeper channel that connected the jumping pool to the main river system, following scent trails from various fish species that use the area for feeding and shelter. Bull sharks possess unique physiological adaptations that enable them to thrive in both saltwater and freshwater environments, making them particularly dangerous in tidal river systems, where most people assumed shark attacks were impossible. The shark's presence in the jumping pool went completely undetected by the group of young people, whose focus remained entirely on the excitement of their recreational activity. Bull sharks were known for their aggressive temperament and unpredictable behavior, characteristics that made them responsible for more human attacks than most other shark species. Their ability to hunt in shallow, murky water created perfect conditions for surprise attacks on unsuspecting swimmers. Ethan had barely surfaced from his jump when the bull shark struck with explosive force. The predator had detected his entry into the water through its sophisticated sensory systems and approached from the deeper section of the pool, where visibility was essentially zero. The shark's powerful jaws clamped down on Ethan's left leg just above the knee, immediately crushing bone and tearing through muscle tissue with rows of razor-sharp teeth. The attack's sudden violence shocked both Ethan and his friends, who had been celebrating the successful jump moments earlier. Ethan's screams of pain and terror echoed off the surrounding cliff walls as the bull shark began its characteristic thrashing behavior, attempting to disorient its prey while inflicting maximum damage. The predator's powerful body movements created violent turbulence, making it extremely difficult for Ethan to maintain his position at the surface. His friends immediately recognized the severity of the situation and began emergency response procedures from their position on the cliff. They threw rocks and sticks into the water near the attack site, hoping to distract the predator and provide Ethan with an opportunity to escape. Several group members used their mobile phones to contact emergency services, while others continued their attempts to drive away the attacking shark. Ethan managed to strike the bull shark's head and snout with his fists during brief moments, when the predator's grip loosened slightly. The shark's thick skin and massive size rendered these defensive efforts largely ineffective, though they demonstrated remarkable courage under extremely dangerous circumstances. The predator maintained its grip on his leg for nearly a full minute, causing severe lacerations and deep tissue trauma that immediately threatened his survival. The bull shark's attack behavior differed significantly from that of other shark species, as it continued its aggressive assault rather than retreating after the initial bite. The predator dragged Ethan beneath the surface several times, forcing him to fight for breath while simultaneously defending against the massive jaws that threatened to inflict fatal injuries. His friends' continued splashing and noise-making efforts from above finally began to have some effect on the predator's behavior. After what seemed like an eternity but lasted approximately 2 minutes, the bull shark released its grip and began circling at a short distance. Ethan immediately began swimming toward the rocky shore area, where his friends could help him out of the water. However, his severe leg injuries made swimming extremely difficult, and significant blood loss had begun to affect his strength and coordination. His friends formed a human chain to reach into the water and pull Ethan to safety without entering the pool themselves. The process required careful coordination to avoid additional attacks from the still present predator, which continued circling the area as if considering another assault. They managed to extract Ethan from the water and begin basic first aid procedures while waiting for emergency medical services to arrive. The extent of Ethan's injuries became apparent once he was safely on shore, with deep lacerations extending from his knee to his ankle and significant damage to bone and muscle tissue. His friends used clothing and camping equipment to create makeshift bandages and tourniquets, working to control blood loss until professional medical help could arrive. The remote location necessitated a helicopter evacuation, although the nearest suitable landing area required a perilous carry across rocky terrain. Emergency medical technicians arrived within 30 minutes and immediately began advanced trauma treatment to stabilize Ethan's condition for transport. His injuries required immediate surgery to repair damaged blood vessels and muscle tissue, with the possibility of permanent disability, depending on the extent of nerve damage caused by the attack. Australian maritime authorities later confirmed that bull shark activity in Darwin's river systems had increased dramatically during the preceding month, with several aggressive encounters reported by local fishing guides and recreational water users. The incident prompted renewed warnings about swimming and jumping in tidal river areas, particularly during seasons when bull sharks moved closer to shore for feeding and reproductive activities. The underwater cave systems along Baja California's Pacific coastline are among the most challenging diving environments in North America. On October 3, 2024, these limestone caverns attracted experienced technical divers seeking unique experiences beyond conventional reef diving. The area's cave networks had formed over millions of years, creating intricate passageways that extended hundreds of feet into the coastal cliffs. Elena Torres, a 26-year-old marine biology graduate student from San Diego, had spent 3 years developing the technical diving skills necessary to explore these challenging environments safely. Her research focused on cave-dwelling marine species, making her both a qualified technical diver and a legitimate scientific researcher. Elena possessed advanced certifications in cave diving and underwater photography, which allowed her to document previously unstudied species. The specific cave system Elena had chosen extended approximately 200 feet into the coastal cliff, with several chambers connected by narrow passages that required careful navigation skills. The cavern's entrance opened at a depth of 40 feet below the surface, creating a portal into an underwater world largely unexplored by mainstream diving operations. Her dive partner, Marcus Chen, possessed similar qualifications and had accompanied her on previous cave exploration dives along the Mexican coast. The morning conditions appeared perfect for cave diving, with calm surface waters and excellent visibility. Elena had planned a conservative dive profile, allowing adequate exploration time while maintaining significant safety margins. Her research objectives included photographing several cave-dwelling fish species adapted to low-light conditions found in the deeper chambers. The dive began without incident as both divers descended to the cave entrance and began methodical exploration of the outer chambers. Elena's underwater camera housing contained sophisticated strobes and lighting systems necessary for scientific documentation in the cave's naturally dark environment. The equipment represented specialized gear designed to capture high-quality images in challenging underwater conditions. Elena had been exploring a particularly narrow passage for approximately 20 minutes when she encountered a section that required careful maneuvering to avoid damaging equipment or disturbing the sediment. While threading through the tight space, she accidentally brushed her bright silver camera housing against a rocky protrusion, creating sharp metallic contact that sent vibrations through the surrounding water. The impact triggered her camera's automatic strobe system, sending brilliant flashes through the cavern and creating sudden bubble bursts from her breathing apparatus. The combination of metallic sounds, bright flashes, and bubble streams created exactly the type of disturbance that could attract predators from open water beyond the cave entrance. Elena immediately recognized her mistake and attempted to secure her equipment more carefully, though the damage had already been done. A 12-foot mako shark had been patrolling the open channel outside the cave system, following a tuna school that had moved through the area earlier that morning. Mako sharks possessed exceptional speed and agility, making them particularly effective hunters, though they occasionally investigated unusual disturbances that might indicate potential prey or competitive threats. The sudden commotion from within the cave system immediately attracted the predator's attention. Elena was attempting to photograph a rare cavefish species when the mako shark suddenly appeared at the narrow passage entrance, blocking her exit route with its massive bulk. The predator's presence in the confined space created an immediate emergency, as cave diving safety protocols emphasized maintaining clear exit routes at all times. The shark's 12-foot length nearly filled the passage width, making retreat impossible without confrontation. The mako's initial approach appeared more investigative than aggressive, though its behavior quickly escalated when Elena's movements triggered additional strobe flashes from her camera equipment. The bright lights and continued bubble emissions seemed to agitate the predator, causing it to begin aggressive posturing behavior that preceded most mako shark attacks on humans. Without warning, the shark lunged forward in the confined space, its jaws clamping down on Elena's left calf with tremendous force. The predator's razor-sharp teeth immediately punctured her diving suit and sliced through muscle tissue, causing severe lacerations and significant blood loss. The attack's violence in the confined cave passage created a nightmarish scenario, where normal escape strategies became impossible. Elena's instinctive defensive reactions included striking the shark's head and attempting to wedge against the cave wall to prevent deeper injury. The confined space actually worked in her favor by limiting the shark's ability to generate full thrashing attack power, although it also prevented her from escaping the immediate danger zone. Her experience with technical diving emergencies proved crucial in maintaining her composure and continuing to fight for survival. Marcus heard Elena's distress signals and immediately began emergency response procedures from his position in an adjacent chamber. He activated his emergency signaling device and started making loud metallic sounds with the diving tools, hoping to distract the attacking predator. His rapid approach created additional noise and commotion that confused the mako shark about the nature of the threat it was facing. The combined efforts of both divers, including Elena's continued defensive strikes and Marcus's disruptive activities, finally began to affect the shark's behavior. The predator released its grip on Elena's leg and began backing out of the narrow passage, apparently deciding the confined space presented too many complications for a successful hunt. The mako retreated toward the cave entrance, though it continued patrolling the area. Elena's injuries were immediately apparent, with deep lacerations visible through tears in her diving suit and blood beginning to cloud the surrounding water. Marcus started administering emergency first aid procedures using diving equipment components, working to control bleeding and stabilize her condition for the challenging ascent to the surface. Emergency medical services met the divers at the surface, with Elena requiring immediate transport to a trauma center for treatment of severe lacerations and potential nerve damage. Her injuries were serious but not life-threatening thanks to quick defensive reactions and Marcus's effective emergency response. The fjords surrounding Tromsø, Norway, had earned international recognition as one of the premier locations for observing orcas in their natural Arctic habitat. On August 12, 2025, these spectacular waterways provided the perfect setting for recreational boating and wildlife observation, as pods of orcas regularly entered the sheltered fjords during their seasonal migrations. Eric Larson, a 26-year-old software engineer from Oslo, had organized the weekend boating trip with 3 longtime friends as an escape from their demanding urban careers. The group had rented a 22-foot recreational vessel specifically designed for fjord exploration. However, none of the 4 friends had extensive experience with Arctic waters or encounters with marine wildlife. Their trip represented a typical example of well-intentioned recreational boating in environments that required more specialized knowledge than most tourists possessed. The small recreational boat carried standard safety equipment, including life jackets, emergency flares, and basic communication devices. However, it lacked the specialized equipment typically used by professional wildlife tour operators. The vessel's size and design made it ideal for exploring shallow coves and protected waters. Still, it was potentially vulnerable to encounters with large marine mammals in more exposed areas of the fjord system. The morning had progressed pleasantly as the group explored several scenic coves while observing seabirds, seals, and various fish species that thrived in the nutrient-rich Arctic waters. The friends had successfully photographed spectacular landscapes and felt confident about their ability to navigate the fjord system safely. Their enthusiasm for wildlife observation had grown throughout the morning, as they encountered an increasingly diverse array of marine life. The group's excitement reached its peak when they spotted a pod of orcas moving through the main channel of the fjord, approximately half a mile from their position. Eric immediately steered toward the whales, hoping to observe and photograph these magnificent creatures from what he considered a safe distance. The orcas appeared to be feeding, with several individuals performing dramatic surface behaviors that made them popular subjects for wildlife photographers. As the small boat approached the orca pod, the marine mammals seemed initially unconcerned by the human presence, continuing their feeding activities while occasionally surfacing near the vessel. The friends began taking photographs and videos, marveling at the size and grace of creatures that could reach 25 feet in length and weigh several tons. Their focus remained entirely on the spectacular wildlife viewing opportunity, with little attention paid to subtle changes in the orca's behavior patterns. One massive adult male, distinguishable by its towering 6-foot dorsal fin and estimated length of 25 feet, began displaying increasingly aggressive posturing toward the small boat. Orcas possess complex social structures and territorial behaviors that can make them unpredictable around human activities, particularly when protecting their feeding areas or younger pod members. The adult male's behavior suggested growing agitation with the boat's continued presence in what the pod apparently considered their territory. Without warning, the massive orca launched a direct assault on the recreational vessel, striking the hull with tremendous force using both its head and powerful tail flukes. The impact generated a sound like thunder, while simultaneously lifting the boat partially out of the water and sending all 4 passengers tumbling across the deck. Coolers, fishing equipment, and camera gear flew in all directions as the vessel rocked violently from the impact of the attack. Eric and his friends found themselves in a terrifying situation that none of their previous recreational experiences had prepared them for. The small boat's fiberglass hull had sustained visible damage from the orca's strike, though it remained watertight and capable of continued operation. However, the massive marine mammal showed no signs of retreating. Instead, it began to circle the damaged vessel while displaying continued aggressive behavior. The situation deteriorated rapidly when the orca's next assault caused Eric to lose his balance and fall overboard into the frigid Arctic water. The shock of the cold water immediately began to affect his coordination and swimming ability. At the same time, the presence of a 25-foot agitated predator made rescue attempts extremely dangerous for his friends remaining aboard the boat. The massive orca immediately focused its attention on Eric, approaching him in the water with behavior that seemed both investigative and threatening. The marine mammal's intelligence and curiosity made its intentions difficult to predict, as orcas had been known to display both gentle and aggressive behaviors toward humans in different circumstances. Eric found himself face to face with one of the ocean's apex predators in its own environment, completely dependent on the creature's intentions for his own survival. The orca nudged Eric with its massive head, generating enough force to push him several feet through the water, demonstrating the incredible power difference between a human and a marine mammal. The creature then grasped Eric gently but firmly in its jaws, holding him beneath the surface for several seconds before releasing him and allowing him to resurface. The behavior suggested investigation rather than predation, though Eric had no way of knowing the orca's ultimate intentions. His friends aboard the boat immediately began emergency response procedures, using oars to strike the water's surface while shouting and making as much noise as possible. Their efforts were designed to distract the orca and create enough commotion to discourage further aggressive behavior. The small boat's engine remained operational despite the hull damage, allowing them to maneuver closer to Eric's position while maintaining a sufficient distance to avoid further attacks. The orca's behavior remained unpredictable for several more minutes, alternately approaching Eric and retreating to observe the situation from a distance. The marine mammal's intelligence was clearly evident in its methodical assessment of the human's responses to its aggressive behavior. Finally, the combined noise and activity from the boat crew seemed to satisfy the orca's curiosity or territorial concerns, prompting it to rejoin the rest of its pod and move away from the immediate area. Eric's rescue from the frigid water required careful coordination to avoid hypothermia and additional injury from his brief encounter with the massive marine mammal. His friends managed to pull him aboard without further incident, although his condition required immediate attention due to cold water exposure and minor injuries sustained during the orca's attack. Norwegian maritime authorities later confirmed that orca encounters with small boats had increased significantly in recent months, with several aggressive incidents reported by recreational boaters throughout the region.